The day before the test, you straight up told the students one of the questions was going to be, gave them the answer, and 80% of them still managed to get it wrong. Why does that happen? I'm going to explain to you why and how you fix it. The biggest underlying issue here, the biggest thing that's happening is that students don't trust themselves. They don't think they're smart enough in science. They don't think they can be successful in a science class. A lot of students think the only way they can pass the science class is by cheating. And as a result, they stop trying. As adults, think back to the last time we were doing something new. We tried something for the first time that we weren't already good at. Not too long ago, I played that game with the bean bags. You toss and try to get on the things. I'll put the name of it here when I find it after. And I was bad at it, okay? It was frustrating. I wanted to quit. And so that feeling of being bad at something, of being embarrassed that you're bad at something, not wanting other people to watch you be bad at something. We know what that feels like. And that's how our students feel sitting in our classroom. And I know as the teacher in the room, you're like, okay, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help them understand it. But we have to know that our students are managing their own egos. They don't want to look dumb. They don't want to be talked about. They don't want you to think they're dumb. And so their reaction is them trying to protect themselves from being perceived as stupid. It's them trying to protect themselves from experiencing failure. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, okay, but they're failing. But what they can say to themselves right now is, I failed because I didn't try, not because I'm not smart enough. If they try and then they fail, then they have to navigate that. They're going to start to feel like, oh my gosh, it's confirmed that I'm dumb now. It's not just that I think I can't do it. I've now confirmed that I can't do it. And so students not trying is them trying to protect themselves from that feeling. So what do you do about it? We're going to build their confidence. We're going to help students to feel confident that they can be successful in our science classes. And I'm going to put around here somewhere, this way I think about instruction is a pyramid of things that have to be happening in the classroom in order for students to be successful. At the bottom of the pyramid, making up the foundation, is SEL. And I know as soon as I said SEL, some people were like, ugh, and got ready to click off the video. Because a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what SEL is. It is so much deeper than a community circle. That can be part of it, but it is not the only part that is SEL. Inquiry-based learning is also SEL. Because when students engage in inquiry, they are having to manage this project. They're having to navigate making mistakes and moving past those mistakes. They're having to manage not knowing something and figuring it out. And all of it is a part of SEL. Even as I'm going through these pyramid and I'm saying the things they're separate, they're not. They're all interrelated and infused together. And so I probably need to rethink the graphic. But this is how I'm representing it right now, primarily because SEL is the foundation. If students are so caught up in worried about looking dumb, if they're so caught up in fear and anxiety about what's happening in the classroom, then they can't be successful. They don't have any room in their brain to process what you're trying to teach them. And so we have to address that first. On top of the SEL, we have building student skills, their critical thinking skills, their analytical skills, their foundational skills for your subject area. So I know in the past, I made the mistake of walking into biology on day one and assuming every kid knew what an organelle was. They don't. And so I need to make sure they have those foundational skills so that when we're having different discussions, they're able to participate. They feel confident enough to participate, which again ties back down to that SEL. So building up those skills. And then at the top is content. But when you have that solid foundation of SEL buffeted by their skills, the content becomes easy. It really does. And I talk about this more in a PD that I ran on embedding inquiry into your notes. It's inside of the lab resource library. You can check that out if you're interested. I'll link it in the description. But anyway, moving right along. What are the actual practical steps to helping students build confidence in your class? The first thing that we're going to talk about are quick wins. We want students to experience success in our class early. And we want them to experience that success so that they start to feel confident that they can do well in our class. If students are not experiencing success in our class, if every single time they come in and they take a quiz, they fail it, they are going to just feel more and more defeated. And the more defeated they feel, the less they're going to try. So we need them to have quick wins. Quick wins can look like just having students to make observations. And then when they say, well, I don't know, I don't know what to write. What do you see? And again, I think another misconception that happens with SEL is that if you're doing SEL, you have to be like touchy-feely, nicey nice. You know, that's okay, baby, patting them on the back. You don't. You really don't. Because what this can look like in my classroom with me is a kid tells me, well, I don't know what to write. And I say, well, what do you see? I don't know. You do know what you see. Look at the paper. Do you see shapes? What are the shapes you see? Write that down. And because part of SEL is holding kids to your expectations, my expectation is that you're going to put forth some effort. And so I'm going to help you figure out how to scaffold this to the point that you can put forth that effort. And what happens over time is they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, so identify that the nucleus looks like a circle, but the Golgi body looks like little ovals and pancakes. And then when I go to the board and I talk about it with the whole class, I'm going to use the language that students use and match that to the academic language. And the fact that I'm using their language, that's another quick win, because them hearing me repeat it is like further confirmation that they were on the right track. And so it helps students to build that confidence so that they are willing to try. The next thing is, we already discussed inquiry-based learning but that is another way that we help students to build confidence. And I do it inside of my note-taking. So if I have, like when we were going through cellular respiration, students were given a model of cellular respiration. And instead of me telling students what the formula was, I asked them to identify what are the inputs and outputs of cellular respiration on this model. And we discussed, like, what do we look for to figure out the inputs? The arrows are pointing in. What do we look to figure out the outputs? The arrows are pointing out. Okay, now you figure it out and you tell me. And then I wrote it on the board based off of what they told me. I didn't just give it to them. And the fact that they figured it out on their own helps them to build confidence. It helps them to know, oh yeah, I can do this. I can figure this out. In addition to that, it also helps them to remember it a little bit better, and it gets them used to looking for the details on models, which serves them really well as the year goes on and in other classes. The next piece that you can implement in order to help students build confidence is reflection and goal setting. One of the ways this pops up in my class is with talking to students about test anxiety. And so when we do my test anxiety lesson with my students, they actually sit there and think about, okay, how do I feel when I'm taking a test? What's going through my brain when I'm testing? How do I actually feel during class time? Am I confident during class? What am I actually doing well on classwork? Like, do I do a good job on all my classwork? And it's just tests that I don't do well on. And then I have them think through, okay, well, if you're doing well in class, then you know the material. So the things that you're thinking in your brain, the things your brain is telling you about you not being able to do this are wrong. And so helping them to have those thought processes and develop a plan to manage their test anxiety. Also with goal setting, helping them to think through making good choices, all of that. But it is being tied, in the vast majority of the resources that I use and that I make, I'm tying it to science. So we do another example of a reflection activity is this activity called How Many Snails is Too Many Snails? And it's practicing the scientific practices, is having students practice how to ask questions, how to make observations, how to use data, or to think about how they would use data. And so it is very much tied to the practice of science. And at the end of it, we have a community discussion about how, even though they didn't feel like they were doing science, they were using the scientific practices, and how that relates to all these things that we do in class that they think are too hard. And so that if you could do that, it's the same skills, just with different content. And so that's that reflection piece. And that is going to help students, again, to build that confidence. And the more you build their confidence, the more you'll see students be engaged. The less that you will need to be the entertainment. Because the reason if you have to entertain your students, it's because you're trying to distract them from the fact that they don't think they can do it. And if, as they grow more confident, they'll engage more, even without you doing a whole song and dance, even if something isn't fun. Now, it does still need to be interesting, but it doesn't have to be fun, because they now have the self-efficacy, they have the self-belief that they can do it. And the other thing that happens when they grow more confident is students will be more likely to advocate for themselves, which is so helpful as a teacher. So instead of just, sitting there when they don't know what to do, just hoping and praying that you walk by, notice that they need help, and then ask them about it. As they grow more confident, they are more willing to ask for help, and they know better how to ask for help, like what they actually need help on, instead of just saying, I don't know. So, and these are all things that I use in my classroom, and these are results that I've seen in my classroom. Watch kids go from in August telling me they can't do it, they can't try, they won't try, they'll never, I just can't do biology, it's just too hard, to by this point in the year, it's November, students are making A's and B's on tests. The same ones who are making 40s in August, 80s and 90s now, because we built up their confidence. And by March, I'm basically decoration, because I'm still there, obviously to like provide content and support, but students are so confident in their ability that they are much more willing to sit there and work it out and figure it out. And then even when they ask for help, I'll have kids who at the beginning of the year told me, oh, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Kids who at the beginning of the year who were telling me, if I don't cheat, I can't pass. And then in March, I'll hear them tell a friend, hey, can you explain coevolution to me? I don't want you to tell me the answer, just explain it, because I want to figure it out on my own. And that happens because I take the time to invest in SEL and in skill building. And will it be a time suck? I mean, kind of. It's also integrated into your everyday lessons. But whatever time you think you lost, you gain back in spades on the other end. Because like I said, in March, and I'm just like sitting there chilling, because we get through notes so quickly. They'll go right into the practice and they'll ask for help when they need it, but they'll also ask each other for help. And then usually are just asking me to confirm whatever conclusion they've come to as a group, which is usually right. And so it just makes teaching a lot easier and a lot more fun.